Hi, guys. Exciting news for season 4. The Thrive Tribe newsletter is for everyone and it's free.
To sign up for our newsletter and to get more out of Chasing Brighter and engage with our amazing community, go to chasingbrighter.com/newsletter to get the latest updates.
And every month we have freebies, so check it out.
Welcome to the Chasing Brighter podcast, the podcast created as a guide to make midlife the best life.
Are you ready to embrace the next chapter of your life with confidence and excitement? Your best life is just a listen away.
Hey, Kelly, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Jess. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about dating. So listeners, Kelly and I have been trying to have a dating expert on our show for about 4 years. And the most random things have happened. We're going to have one, and then someone died in their family. We had one, they no-showed. We rescheduled. They ghosted us. We've been trying. So if you are an expert in dating, any kind of dating, please reach out to us because this is something that a lot of our listeners have been requesting. Because there's a lot of dating coaches out there.
Yeah. And so what we really wanted to talk about in terms of dating is our friends or our community of listeners. We have people who maybe have never been married or found themselves to be single again. And so this is such a challenging topic that we hear from everyone.
There's again a rise in dating coaching experts on what to be doing. So this brings me to this article I read in the New York Times. Okay. First of all, did you know that there was something called Facebook dating? I mean, you and I are coupled
out of the
up,
game,
so we're not really looking. But in 2019, Facebook dating launched and has quietly become more popular than many expected, reaching over 21 million users. So from this article, they're saying what is underlying its success is that Facebook, is used by real people. So you can see how you're connected to them. You can see mutual friends. It's easy to see where you have mutual interests. So Facebook dating doesn't have to build from zero like a standalone dating app because it uses infrastructure, relationships, and social signals. And so they're also talking about that Facebook's core feed engagement has been facing headwinds, especially among younger users, because features like Facebook Marketplace and Messenger now dating are helping the platform. So my daughter, who told me Facebook was for old people, has now signed up, a Gen Zer now signed up for Facebook because of Facebook Marketplace, because they're selling things and buying things. And so it says when you look at Gen Z usage on Facebook, they're not using the social media feed. Again, what's bringing them to the platform is the Marketplace, Messenger, and dating. So Facebook dating isn't just a dating app strategy, right? It's part of a broader retention and engagement. And so I thought that was really interesting.
That is super interesting.
And, our listeners know that so what is so crazy is that Meta shut us down.
Yeah.
And so what's so crazy is then the power of Meta to have all that information. So my daughter signed up for Facebook and didn't pay attention that it spelled her last name wrong. And it is not letting her change her name. It's very weird. They are not letting us change the spelling of her last name, and she can't do it. And it's so crazy. And it's once you're in that system, remember how you and I got bogged down in that system. But so interesting.
Well,
oh, great. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that, I work in the technology space and I work with customers who have databases and systems of contact information. And so I think what is challenging is I know you can go in and change a name.
Yeah.
But it's the regular barriers to getting to those people are nearly impossible because a lot of those companies don't really resource that level of kind of support, if you will, right? Facebook is terrible at support. We know that now. And so it gets very challenging. I'm very grateful for places that do have better support. But, it's funny because when I, even back my gosh, so it's like almost 20 years ago when I got married and I changed my name. I was
Yeah.
a consultant then, traveling every week, and I had a ton of, reward status points on all the airlines and hotels.
Yeah.
And this was 20 years ago. So some of them you could just say, change my name, and they'd change your name for you. Maybe I'd show them some sort of information. But
Yeah.
other ones would be like, we need your marriage license. We need your blah, 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 blah. And so I never changed my name on Hilton. And instead, I changed it to Martin-Fox Jess. Somehow I could like
Mhm.
modify
Yeah.
the name, but like to fully change it to Fox. So anytime we travel on Hilton, I'm always like reservation for Fox. So like, we don't have you on the system. I was like, oh, wait, I'm sorry. For you guys, I'm like Martin Fox. So it is very annoying.
Well, and then you feel like it's intrusive because Venmo asked you to verify your identity and you didn't want to do it, right? Like you felt like that was intrusive.
Okay.
So
If we
it's
want to go,
interesting.
I don't know. I think I told you this, but that really started a snowball of essentially what became identity or like bank fraud for me. I think, Jess.
Well, you
So
think that was it?
somehow, yes,
You think they got in
because
your Venmo
well,
and
because
messed up your Venmo?
I had weeks ago in my Venmo, I had my business account and my personal account and a couple other different accounts because I at one time paid my contractors through Venmo. And so I never took that account out. And plus we used to, pay other things for Chasing Brighter through that. So I kept my business account tied on Venmo. And many weeks ago, you know how you get a notification for 2FA where you get the text of a
Yeah.
code? And I got
Two-factor.
that and I was like, it's not me. I'm not going to respond, right? Because that's the whole point is it's like, if I didn't try to log in and they're sending me a code, then I don't want to get in. That happened multiple times. And then I ignored them because I was like, well, somebody's trying to get into my account, but too bad on Venmo because I'm not authorizing it. Well, then Venmo shut down. They suspended my entire account because of my business account. They detected fraudulent activity on my business account. And so they just shut down everything. And then a couple weeks. And so then I let that go by for like a month. And then, sorry, this is kind of boring, maybe. I let that go by for like a month. And then last week is when I got the call from Verizon, somebody acting as Verizon saying that somebody put an order in for phones on my account. And then that prompted them to essentially try to steal my account login information from Verizon. And then it was tied to my bank account. And
Long
therefore, then they
story
connected
short,
me.
yeah, you got caught up in a very sophisticated scam
Yeah. Yeah.
of people trying to get
Yes.
your bank information because it is not
Thank you.
like it used to be. They have real information that has you thinking you need to give your information and then verify. And it's scary.
It is scary. And also, like when you call, like I had, so essentially with the bank account, then I immediately changed all my passwords. But what's fascinating is when you call the bank asks you for like your account number or your social security number. And this person was asking me for my bank account number and my social security number. I'd say the one thing I learned is, and then I had the bank calling me and then I was like, how do I know you're real? Because the other person told me that they were my bank too. And they're like, well, ma'am, you're just going to have to trust us. And so what I learned, I guess, is if the bank calls you directly, they should never ask for any personal information. They should have that on them. But if
Yeah.
you call your bank, then you can give them personal information because that's what they're using to verify you. But it was very weird. It was very confusing. And I do feel like I'm pretty like savvy to be almost, I got to the point where I realized I was being scammed. But like, it is
Yeah.
really very sophisticated nowadays, that whole thing. So it's crazy. And
I
so
think we've talked about we love the convenience of like tap pay and tapping and paying this way and doing all this stuff. And with like I've been on Facebook for 18 years. Like, do you know how many things I'm a part of, an app I'm a part of that's just auto Facebook login or connected to your Google account? You know, like
yeah.
everything's all connected. And so even kind of tying back to the Facebook dating, like on the flip side, there are implications around privacy, data sharing, how our dating activity interacts with our Facebook profile, right? Just like all of this stuff is so tied together. And then it leads us open to Now these scams are so sophisticated, and it's interesting. Do you think people in midlife, right? Because I think Facebook's really big for boomers, Gen X, millennials, like are going to be more inclined and feel more comfortable with something that like Facebook dating or something like that.
I think a vast majority of the population of folks who are kind of like in the like more established in their lives use Facebook.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think there's definitely a lot of us who use Instagram and whatnot, but Facebook is a high level of engagement
Yeah.
in that way. So it's interesting though, because I know that the whole dating thing has really evolved. Remember when I worked for the dating service
Yes.
back in
Listeners,
the day?
Kelly worked for a
I worked for
high-end
Matchmaker
dating.
International. And
Yeah.
it was a high-end dating service where you would pay and then they would write a specific profile and they would match you with other people and they would let you vet various people. So they would propose different people to you and then you would decide if you wanted to date them or go on a date or not. And they had sort of this
Yeah.
prescribed thing. I think the thing that was cool about that, going back to the Facebook stuff, is that, and go back to a lot of things we talked about in Chase Browder, the human connection and personal interaction is really the ultimate thing. And I think
Yeah.
dating is such an interesting industry in that everyone is trying to put a science to it and have it
Yeah.
be like low touch. Like just throw some people in front of me and let me pick one.
I loved watching, I believe the show, let me quadruple check. It was called Indian Matchmaking on
Oh,
Netflix. So before we end today, I have a question for you and tell me your thoughts. And I don't mean to be like depressing. I have been married for 24 years and in the Indian matchmaking show, the one that they showed and she was a global matchmaker, but I felt like a lot of the Americans or the Indians living in America were very much like going toward midlife and they were like, I can't believe I'm still single. And they were so picky. Like she'd find this person, she'd be like, and they would be like, they're balding. I can't date them. Or they'd be like, oh, she's okay, but I don't like her front teeth. Right. And so what she kept saying was, I am aligning all of these things. Like you are looking for a life partner. And these are things that are going to be a great match. And she was matched and did not know her husband before marriage. And so she talks a lot about that. So being 24 years married, going on 27 years with a person, I totally think a science of like looking at things that make you compatible and looking at your family history and your goals in life is more important than if you're like physically attracted to each other and have fun together. Does that make sense? I think you
yes.
can build love because I think my love now is a totally different love than when I met my husband. Right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends on, I think it's like what people want. I think
I
it's
guess what's
interesting in that,
sustainable.
yeah, I do feel like and I mean, this conversation can meander on a lot because I think as you get older, you get very much set in your ways, so much so before when you were younger, it didn't come into play. And so I think you maybe overlook things as you're younger. And sometimes those are not big deals, but
Yeah.
sometimes they become a big deal. And so from a
Yeah.
relationship perspective, that's where it gets a little dicey. But I think the superficial part of the matchmaking situation is hard because I think you really have to know a person, Jess. I think there's the
Yeah.
short attractions part of it, but I think you really have to know a person because I think people become attractive too once you get to know them if you overlook
I
something
guess that's kind of like
else.
what I'm saying, if this makes sense, because I read a ton of romance books, right? In the romance books, it's like you see someone, there's a spark, you fall in love, you're super attracted, and you can't
Yeah,
stop
there's
touching
like
each other, making
endless.
out all the
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And I just think, again, not sound depressing, that fizzles because that's not going to keep you together. And what I feel like keeps my marriage together are very strong is like we have a really great partnership. We are really great teammates. We are like, you've got this, like we have trust and like we have the same values for our kids and what we want for our kids, what we want for our life. When I was 20, if you were like, you should be with this person because look, you have the same goals, you have the same values. Yeah, I would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I just want to like make out with a hot guy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I have a family member who, well, on Brian's family, who married later in life. They didn't have kids. And it was, I don't know why we got on this subject of marriage. And they've been married for over 20 years because we went to their wedding when Brian and I were dating. And
Yeah.
she just had said, I got to a point where I wanted companionship. And I thought it was interesting hearing her say companionship because that comes across as you just want a friend.
Settling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought a lot about what she said after a couple days later because I thought that sounded like such a sad thing to say. But I realized that her and her husband, they have actually a ton of stuff in common.
Yeah.
I think that is what started the relationship, right? I do think that they love each other very much. And so
yeah.
just because you're saying, like, because she was saying companionship, that doesn't necessarily mean.
Yeah, she didn't say,
passion.
oh, it was a whirlwind. I never thought I'd get married.
Yes.
And then I met him and I was like, oh my God, he's my person and he's my soulmate.
Well, they dated for a really long time. I think that was what it was. I was like, what made you decide to get married? And she sort of was like, companionship. Because I think that's the other part is like, and I'm sure you do too, but it's like, I have friends who have never married or who are dating somebody who I know are probably longer term partners, but they have not been married. And so it's like, what? I asked her that. I was like, what made you decide to get married? Because she didn't need to be married theoretically. Yeah. But I think she and her husband liked the idea of that commitment. I think that's probably what marriage is for anybody.
I feel like that's what I'm saying. I'm saying when you say not to be sad, but ultimately, I think that when I look at some of kind of that matchmaking stuff, when you talk about algorithm or what that looks like, I think it doesn't look fancy and shiny like in romance books and movies and what we're shown. But I think ultimately that can lead to a rich, long-term coupling. Interesting.
I agree. I think that's a great description. So that goes back to it, which is really, what are the things that you like to spend time on? Almost of those, what would you like to share with another person doing those things and then see where it goes from there and not worry about buck teeth, I guess.
I don't know, worry about aesthetics. But anyway, so
balding and buck teeth.
If any of our listeners are single right now and wanting to check things out, check out the New York Times article on dating. Again, anybody out there that is in the dating world, if you're matchmaking or coaching or anything like that, please reach out to us because we'd love to have you on the show.
Thanks for listening today.
If you loved today's episode, share with a friend. Are you ready to chase brighter days ahead? Subscribe to Chasing Brighter now, and let's embark on this exciting journey together.